Good evening, everybody. This is a live emergency update as we have a massive ice storm that's about to unfold across a large swath of the U.S., including about 10 states that could get accumulating ice accrual, I should say. So you can see the freezing rain map here. This is actually freezing rain accretion. Freezing rain accumulation will overestimate the amount of ice that can accumulate on infrastructure like the roads and those power lines. But basically, the purple shows you where freezing rain could accumulate over 0.5 inches. So that's where over a half an inch of ice could happen. Multiple waves of freezing rain moving across this area. Both waves are going to impact that of eastern Arkansas through the Missouri Boot Heel and along the Ohio River Valley. Looks like that could be prime for some of those greater amounts as both waves are going to impact that area by freezing rain. Oklahoma, the first wave misses just to the north, but then the main wave moves in Wednesday late morning into southwestern Oklahoma. And I'm also going to break down the exact timing of this freezing rain event. Looks like snow in Oklahoma City, then dry slot, which often happens during winter storms in the Sooner State. When I've been there, usually you'll get really excited, a period of heavy snow with the warm advection, and then the deformation zone finally sets up off to the northeast with those more potent upper level systems. This storm system, though, is a textbook freezing rain maker, and I'm going to show you exactly why. First, I want to show you all the winter storm warnings, winter storm watches and warnings. Central Texas, almost the entire state of Oklahoma. Winter, aside from the winter weather advisories out there near Elk City, down towards Sayre to the southwestern portion of the state, and the Texas Panhandle. That's just because the dry slot's going to move in there before the precipitation really has a chance to mature. It's going to light up, though, southwestern Oklahoma along that I-44 corridor into Oklahoma City beginning late morning tomorrow on Wednesday. That's when that heavier precipitation is going to move in. There could be some sprinkles and maybe a period of freezing drizzle tonight through tomorrow morning, though, in Oklahoma City with the initial arrival of that Arctic front. And now I want to show you the pattern. Just an absolutely textbook pattern for the ice storm. And it's all of this ice storm is driven entirely by that massive high pressure. So you can see this 1045 high that's forecast to be anchored over central Minnesota by the middle portion of the week. This is actually on Thursday when the final wave, that surface low, is ejecting along that boundary. So because of this massive 1045 high located over the north central U.S., that's going to cause this Arctic front just to bleed down to the south. And eventually it's going to set up shop. It's going to clear the entire state of Texas and then move out into the Gulf of Mexico by this time back behind the system. But this Arctic air mass is just steadily moving down to the south, and you have a positively tilted upper level trough as well. Basically exists like that. And whenever you have these positively tilted troughs, you usually get a weak surface low, maybe even multiple little weak surface perturbations moving along that Arctic boundary, and it'll be associated with a surge and a little bit of some warm advection along that boundary. The main warm advection is going to be associated with this main wave that's going to move from the southern plains up through the mid-south. And there might even be an outside chance of some severe weather across southern Mississippi as the surface low moves through during the midday on Thursday. I might be monitoring the intercept of that severe weather maybe on Thursday, or I might even shoot up toward the Cincinnati area and intercept some of that peak ice accumulation that looks like it's going to happen from the Missouri Boot Heel along the Ohio River Valley. Another significant icing area, southern, southeastern Oklahoma into north Texas, all the way down into central Texas. Some of the greatest ice accumulations are found from northeastern Oklahoma into the mountainous terrain, or northeastern Texas, the mountainous terrain there of southeastern Oklahoma, and into central Arkansas. Maybe even portions of the Ozarks could get hammered. And all of this is driven by this massive sprawling high, this anticyclone that's associated with that Arctic air mass. This Arctic air mass is going to be very shallow as well. So that sub-freezing layer, very shallow, and then just a little bit of subtle warm advection just above the ground creates that warm nose and brings that temperature above freezing about a kilometer or two above the ground. And we're going to break down some of the forecast soundings as well from southwest and northeast across this area. But first, I want to show you the 3-kilometer NAM. This is the loop showing you when that precipitation is going to develop. There's the initial wave, moves, barely grazes the northern portion of Oklahoma, hammers though Missouri and the Ohio River Valley with a period of decent icing and even snow. This is a 1-2 punch. That's why those snowfall totals that are going to be maximized from central Illinois, northern Indiana, southern lower Michigan, northwestern Ohio, those snowfall totals are going to be so high because this is a 1-2 punch. You basically have that positively tilted trough just sitting over the same area, leading to a long duration precipitation event. Very different from this last weekend system that I chased up into New England, which is a bomb cyclone. That was a system where the surface pressure dropped over 35 millibars in a 24-hour period. Not quite the 50 millibars that the NAM was showing, but that's a very dynamic system. You're chasing 100-mile-per-hour winds, whiteout, a quickly evolving blizzard that's lifting up the East Coast. This one is a positively tilted, slowly evolving trough, subtle warm advection, and a couple of surface perturbations or surface lows moving along that boundary, leading to an increase in that precipitation. But really, I think this is going to be a more impactful ice storm. This is a textbook ice storm type of a setup with a large area potentially greater than a quarter-inch of ice accretion on those power lines and those trees, possibly greater than a half an inch as well, stretching across 10 different states. So from central Texas through southeastern Oklahoma, Arkansas, the Missouri boot heel, western Kentucky, those same areas that were impacted by the December 10 and 11 tornadoes are going to be impacted by a crippling icing event. So that's the 18Z 3-kilometer dam. And here is the HRRR. And I just took that temperature loop in the upper right portion of the screen. That shows you that shallow Arctic air mass that is bleeding south through the southern plains, dominating Texas as well. Winter storm warnings include the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Already a bunch of schools and businesses that are closing for Thursday and Friday in anticipation of that big wave. And it's going to begin as a period of regular rain in the Dallas area, and then that Arctic boundary sags south after the precipitation begins, changing it over to that icing event. Temperatures are going to plummet during the day on Wednesday. Looks like a Wednesday night event that it changes over to that freezing rain. That's a big problem too, because at night the temperature cools much more easily on those bridges and overpasses, elevated surfaces, because you don't have the diurnal heating that you get during the day. So that precipitation happening and maximizing Wednesday night is also a big problem, and it's going to be a very dangerous morning commute on Thursday morning across Dallas. Looks like a pure freezing rain, maybe a sleet event, little period of flurries on the backside of that main wave as it moves off to the east. And then look at that surface low right over here, right at the end of the period. That could be associated with an outside chance of severe weather. Probably will have a slight risk, maybe a marginal risk down there, 2% tornado probability type of an event. But there is definitely a low-level jet down there in the Mid-South ahead of that surface low of about 40 to 50 knots. So the low-level shear is going to be present for a tornado or two down there. But with a weak surface low, you're probably not going to get that backing. You're likely going to have more of a unidirectional profile from the surface to above the ground, all the way up to the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, leading to more of those lined out type of linear modes. So that convection as that surface low moves from Louisiana into central and southern Mississippi. And again, here are some of these other models. Here is the GFS as well. Look at the GFS model. Strong agreement between even the convective allowing models, the short range models on where that icing is going to set up, and even the long range models have been able to predict exactly where that Arctic boundary is going to settle in. Basically, the pink area, that's where you're going to get the freezing rain, the sleet. You're going to have snow to the northwest of it. Unfortunately, in Oklahoma, you are going to get that period of snow, probably a couple of inches, mixing in with a little bit of sleet early on in Oklahoma City, then changing over to snow as that depth of the Arctic air mass deepens, as that Arctic air mass settles down to the south, and then you're going to get dry slotted. I know that I never liked to hear that word when I was down in Oklahoma either as well, but the dry slot comes in, shuts down the precipitation, and then you'll probably get a little bit of some flurries as well on the backside. Shifting off to the northeast, also the HRRR model. Looping that model, you can see the two waves here of precipitation associated with that enhanced warm advection along that Arctic boundary. The sub-freezing layer there with the freezing rain setting up right along the Ohio River Valley, Missouri boot heel, northern Arkansas as well, central northern Arkansas, is going to get hammered by the second wave, especially the first wave misses northern Arkansas. And then finally, that sub-freezing air moves south, dominating the entire state of Arkansas. But the first wave does hammer the Ohio River Valley as well, northeast of the Missouri Boot Heel, southern Illinois, central southern Indiana. It does look like that freezing rain is going to be a little bit north of where it's going to come through with the second wave. But then the second wave comes in right through the Ohio River Valley, areas like Cincinnati. Louisville is going to get in on that ice as that boundary sags off to the south. Paducah is going to get hammered. Southern Illinois, Carbondale, down through Caruthersville, down into the Missouri Boot Heel, central northern Arkansas, absolutely going to get hammered by both of those waves, going back to the 3-kilometer NAM for that second wave. Strong agreement with these models, with the two different waves coming through and exactly where that icing is going to set up with that freezing rain in excess of 1/4 to 1/2 inch possible over 10 states, all the way into western Pennsylvania could get in on that ice storm as well. There near the Pittsburgh area could get hammered by power outages, crippling ice storm. I was telling the story, one of the most impactful winter storms I've ever chased as a storm chaser was actually back in 2007, and it was one that impacted our own home in Norman, Oklahoma, or our rental property at the time in the college town there, 2007. And we lost power for 2 weeks because of that icing event. And that was a much more powerful upper level system, even though it was a similarly positively tilted trough. We actually had thunderstorms with freezing rain that dumped inches of ice that accumulated on all the trees, the power lines. The roads are actually wet because the temperature is borderline just below freezing, and there's a period of warmth just ahead of that ice storm on December 10 through 11, 2007. But our particular house woke up in that morning, and you could actually hear a tree fall, rip the power lines out of the back of the house, and that's the reason why we were without power for 2 weeks in Oklahoma. Definitely almost a survival situation out there, and the tree damage was evident for years after that. People were chopping down trees, piling up their branches in front of their house, and then finally people would come back and pick up all those items. And but there is that GFS loop showing you the second round of that precipitation. And there is a rare, seemingly rare snow event, even though Denver had one of the top Januaries for snowfall. It does seem like the winter started off a little bit slow at least, but now we've got a classic upslope event that's beginning. Looks like over 1 foot in the foothills to the west of Denver. Golden could get hammered by this one. My apartment could get 14 to 15 inches as well. East-southeasterly winds coming in here. Upslope winds squeezing out that moisture. And you're already starting to see some enhanced precipitation off the Palmer Divide as well, southeast side of Denver, getting some light to occasionally moderate snow as that upslope is starting to increase, moving into the Palmer Divide, squeezing out all that moisture. But the greatest snowfall that's going to happen in Colorado is going to be in the foothills just to the west of Denver. Probably my apartment could easily be a snow max in Denver, but you could start to see conditions beginning to deteriorate across the Denver area as that upslope is beginning to increase. You could see the easterly winds, and there's probably a bit of a cold pool right now, so it's actually enhancing that uplift on the eastern edge of the cold pool. That's why the greater snowfall rates are focused over the east side of Denver, but eventually as that upslope reaches all the way up to the foothills, and that lift is going to be maximized right where the gradient on the terrain increase is maximized. So as you're heading west to 70, and then suddenly you hit that dramatic increase in the terrain near the Golden Morrison area, that's where you're going to get those greatest snowfall rates from this classic upslope event with those east-southeasterly winds. So now I want to go over the timing a bit with the ice and the ice storm back in Oklahoma. And we'll shift back to Oklahoma as well, my old stomping ground. And this is late night tonight at about 3Z. Drizzle dominating Oklahoma, but that Arctic air mass surging down to the south, bleeding southward through southern Kansas near the Oklahoma-Kansas border by 10 p.m. Starts to move in to the Enid area, northwestern Oklahoma, Alfalfa, Cherokee areas could get a period of icing tonight with the initial wave. And it looks like Oklahoma City is going to be all rain as this wave moves through at about midnight, 11 p.m. to midnight. And then this wave really comes together just to the northeast of Oklahoma. And this is going to be wave one of freezing rain, setting up just to the north of that I-44 corridor, more of a central Missouri, some freezing drizzle into northern Oklahoma. And it does look that into the early morning hours tomorrow, we could get a period of freezing drizzle all the way down into the Oklahoma City metro, even down into the I-40 corridor, but definitely up near Tulsa, where that wave is going to have a chance to solidify a bit more quickly on approach to northeastern Oklahoma. Could be a pocket of some more enhanced icing up into northeastern Oklahoma early morning, 5, 7 p.m. Looks mainly like liquid rain into Oklahoma, but then you get the arrival of those sub-freezing temperatures right in time for the morning rush hour. And there certainly could be a period of freezing fog, freezing drizzle, definitely adding a glaze to those roads by tomorrow morning at rush hour into Oklahoma City. And then the lead wave heading off to the northeast, still hammering those areas. Southeastern Missouri, St. Louis is going to get that icing. Eventually, that Arctic air mass sags south into uh, southern Illinois as well. So by 14Z, relatively late in the morning, the temperature is below freezing or right at freezing, dew point 29. You're wet bulbing at about 31 degrees, 7, 8, 9 p.m. in the morning. And then your warm nose just above freezing there with that first wave. So there could be a period of freezing drizzle into Oklahoma City as well. Early morning hours tomorrow, and definitely up into the Tulsa area, some more substantial freezing drizzle up there into the morning hours. And then your main wave gets going northwest Texas, moving into southwestern Oklahoma by about 16Z, late morning 10, 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. toward the noon hour that starts to move in toward Oklahoma City, beginning as a period of freezing rain and sleet. Definitely a well-developed warm nose, as often happens in Oklahoma City and Norman. You get so many sleet soundings out there. Temperature 29 degrees, 29 over 26, a little bit above freezing, a small warm nose. Looks like a sleet sounding for the onset of that precipitation. Maybe snow, though, in Lawton. It's going to be really close as to whether that's sleet or snow. But usually in Oklahoma, you want to hedge toward that sleet when it's going to be borderline, because usually that warm advection will be just a little bit more prominent. And you can almost see its fetch here as that warm advection maximizes by Wednesday late afternoon. Still getting that icing into the Oklahoma City metro, sleet, freezing rain. Down toward Ardmore, you also get some freezing rain by Wednesday afternoon. And to the west of Dallas, raging ice storm by Wednesday late afternoon into the evening. That freezing line getting closer and closer to the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex. But by Wednesday evening after sunset is when that precipitation in the Dallas area is going to change over to freezing rain. Very impactful freezing rain, too, especially for the urban areas, DFW. Just southeast of Norman, it appears to stay all ice. South central Oklahoma into those mountainous areas of southeastern Oklahoma. Basically, ice storm alley here from northwestern Texas through southern Oklahoma into the Ozarks and along that Ohio River Valley. And so this is late night Wednesday night. Very long duration freezing rain event, even just for Oklahoma into North Texas, where you're only going to be impacted by that second wave. Still a very long duration freezing rain event. That freezing rain event, that freezing line diving south almost to the Big Bend area by late night Wednesday night by midnight. Just dominating in the Dallas area with freezing rain, sleet happening. DFW metroplex into southeastern Oklahoma, northern Arkansas, southeastern Missouri. The next wave starting to set its sights on the Missouri Boot Heel, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, and that Ohio River Valley, certainly. And then by Thursday morning, the second wave is in full force. Might even get some severe weather in the early morning hours Thursday, southeastern Texas, down near Houston, southern central Louisiana, into southern Mississippi. Could even get some severe weather as that surface low begins to eject. Still getting freezing rain Thursday morning into Dallas. Freezing rain also along the Ohio River Valley, eastern Arkansas, southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, and it's definitely moving further off to the northeast as well as the second wave moves. Dry slotted in Oklahoma. There's your dry slot coming in on the backside. That will shut off the precipitation on the backside. It's a little bit of a subtle dry slot, but that's usually what happens in Oklahoma when that precipitation comes to an end. And then another period of snow moves in for the day on Thursday. Little period of snow moving through Oklahoma as the main wave shifts off to the northeast. And there's the raging ice storm dominating southern Illinois, western Kentucky, Ohio River Valley, southern Indiana, the Cincinnati area getting pummeled by freezing rain. This is by late morning on Thursday. Just a textbook freezing rain sounding. You can see the more prominent warm nose as well that's happening there. Definitely the more prominent warm nose. Definitely not a sleet sounding here, but then your sub-freezing layer. What defines this system is that high pressure, the 1045 high over the north central U.S. That helps to send this shallow Arctic air mass south. Couple that with a positively tilted upper system, gentle warm advection downstream right along that frontal boundary, multiple waves moving along the frontal boundary as well. Just a absolutely textbook ice storm event. Literally textbook. There are textbooks written on this type of a pattern that leads to this icing. So this is by Thursday midday, and I might pop north from my mom's place up toward the Cincinnati area, maybe Louisville, just to intercept this ice storm on Thursday. But I am keeping a little bit of an eye on the severe weather situation across central and southern Mississippi as well. Could certainly be an event down there. "50 knots southwest, but definitely parallel to that frontal boundary. Unidirectional winds, as often is the case with these positively tilted upper level systems. You have south-southwesterly surface winds, weak surface low that's not a strong enough perturbation to bring those surface winds over to a southeasterly direction. So it does look like a very low end severe weather event, central southern Mississippi into central Alabama for this event. The dominant story is going to be this positively tilted trough and the ice storm. North Texas, central Texas, all the way through central Arkansas, northern Arkansas, Missouri, Boot Heel, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, northern Kentucky, western Kentucky, and all the way into southern Ohio. But then there's also going to be the big snow on the northwest side. And this is the latest HRRR showing in excess of a foot from central Illinois, northern Indiana, even portions of central Indiana could get double-digit snowfall, but you are going to be flirting with precipitation type issues there, probably sleet on the south side of Indianapolis, keeping those snowfall totals in the several inch range, dominating snow, Indianapolis and to the north. Fort Wayne's going to be all snow. So it looks like your max is going to happen to the north of St. Louis, central Missouri, all the way up through central Illinois, into northern Indiana and southern lower Michigan, Kalamazoo, Detroit. You could get rocked by this system as well. We can hop on over to the 3-kilometer NAM. Pivotal weather, it looks like your files get saved as the 4-kilometer NAM for the 3-kilometer NAM in the file name. But it definitely noticed a little discrepancy on there. But this also shows you that snowfall max in excess of a foot. Champaign, northwestern Indiana into far southern Michigan. That's going to be your snow event on the north side from both of those waves. You're going to get some snow from the first wave as well. And then when the main wave comes through Wednesday night into Thursday, that's when you're also going to get that snow. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this weather report. Ice storm coverage dominating. There is the text, the old school text as well. There is the ice swath from the NAM. You have been NAMmed here with this map, showing you that ice accretion. Basically North Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, central Arkansas, and then you can see the main event. Eastern Arkansas, western Tennessee, Memphis. You're going to get rocked by this ice storm. Western Kentucky, Missouri, Boot Heel, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, northern Kentucky, all the way up southern Ohio and through western Pennsylvania, and then across the northern section of Pennsylvania, and then into upstate New York as well, at least north of the New York City area, could also get hammered by ice. So it looks like icing across 10 different states from this event. Hunker down. Time to get those supplies. Absolutely textbook pattern. Winter storm watches and warnings. Dominating winter storm warnings are in pink there. You can see those winter storm warnings to the west of Denver. Winter weather advisory in Denver, though, too. With that winter storm warning bulging out along the Palmer Divide to the south of Denver, with some greater upslope on the north side of the Palmer Divide. So thank you everybody for tuning into this weather report. You can see those winter storm watches extend into central Kentucky as well. So you're probably going to get some freezing rain right along the southern edge of that icing too. I wouldn't be surprised if that freezing rain band shifts even a little bit south as that shallow Arctic air mass could hedge a bit south, giving a 1045 high across the north central U.S. So thank you everybody for tuning into this evening weather report. I hope you enjoy my weather reports. Never stop chasing.